Washington football. Woo! Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Burgundy Zone. I am your host, Kyle, and I'm joined by my two co-hosts, Michael Hall and Michael Reed. The Burgundy Zone is a part of the Frederick Podcast Network. You can find out more by going to www.listenfrederick.com. And now we are joined by big man, producer of 6:30 a.m. fill-in host, Mr. Mike Callow. Thank you for joining us this evening, Mike. How are you doing?
Hey, I'm good, guys. Appreciate the invite.
Yeah, and the title of this episode is called Heavyweight, and not meaning physically, but more so just being the boxing gloves, and that's why we wanted to bring you on here. We got somebody, one of our close fans, had reached out to us and said you'd be a good guest to have on here, and I'm really excited to be able to talk to you about it. And the first question I have is pertaining to Sam Howell. What are your, against Arizona solely, that week one matchup, let's just say Sam Howell wins it, what are realistic expectations for Sam Howell?
Realistic, I would say let's expect maybe 2 mistakes. Let's call it a fumble. Let's call it a pick. Okay. I think we'd all be lying if we didn't say he's probably feeling the pressure that he is the guy for all intents and purposes, you know. And this is all pertaining if Brissett doesn't beat him out in camp. I don't expect that to happen at all. But I would say like a solid day of kind of what he did against the Cowboys. Let's call it 200-ish passing yards, maybe right. 30 to 40 rushing yards. And let's call it a touchdown, like either on the ground or passing.
Yeah, I feel like that's fair. Expectations for Sam Howell, especially in week one. You know, like that's not too crazy, because then you can at least sit at it and say if you're south of 200, I think we can all agree we'd all be looking a little sour-faced.
Yeah. It's interesting, too, because it's not like against the Jaguars last year. We're like, yes, it was the Jaguars, but like the Jaguars, everybody knew that the Jaguars were probably going to break eventually and be a decent team. I mean, same with the Lions in week 2. It was like we were set up. It was like, we're facing bad teams, but they could both be pretty good teams. Right. But Arizona, it's like Arizona sucks. They got nothing going on for them. Their Hobbit quarterback's injured. Got Colt McCoy. This isn't Texas, you know? Who cares? But so speaking of expectations, what about Chase Young? And I know that this is kind of beating a dead horse, but camp hasn't even started yet. You know, what are your expectations for Chase Young, and what would be a successful season for him?
That's a loaded question, because if you're kind of listening to the team, if you're listening to Ron Rivera, they want him to be a leader and to just play the scheme so badly. But if you know Chase Young, he's not really doing that, and that's not his style. And like, you won Rookie of the Year. Expectations for him, I would say kind of that San Fran game last year. If we get that effort every single game, I think he'll be okay. I think Chase, just to break it down from last year, Chase was scared to come back onto the field. I think like we all kind of just realized that. That's not me reporting, but I just think he was cleared so early on in the season, then didn't come back. Then when he did come back, he actually looked pretty good. And so I look for him to build off that confidence. Give me like, an 8-sack year. Give me something like that in the entirety of the season, and see a couple of those game-breaking plays again. The Joe Burrow fumble, the return for a touchdown. Give me 1 or 2 of those plays, and I think, he's earned at least a franchise tag, maybe an extension. But they're putting the pressure on him for a reason, and it's because they haven't seen what they want, kind of like the moxie that they want from a number 2 overall pick so far.
I really liked in your explanation you said effort there, that word being key for Chase Young, because whenever he does go full effort, great things happen, to your point.
Yep.
Yeah,
100%.
definitely. Like you said, 100%. And like you said, I think we all want to see the splash plays. Like you said, dating back to his rookie year, just the many times he was swatting balls down. He was getting pressure on the quarterback. Like you mentioned, the scoop and score. He was just, like you said, just making game-changing plays. And I think that even if he doesn't have the godly sack numbers, if he just makes a couple game-changing plays that swing the game our way and actually get us a win, I think he should, like you said, be in line for a franchise tag. But as of late, the past couple, actually really just today, I saw it on Twitter that a couple people were saying that, like even dating back when they signed Eric Bieniemy to the offensive coordinator, a lot of people were asking why Washington, of all your choices you had out there, like this is a poverty franchise, like the kids like to say on Twitter. So what are your expectations for Eric Bieniemy, and do you have any Any do you think that he's going to be a good coordinator, or do you think that it's going to take him a little while to gain his feet and get in the flow of things?
I think he goes hand in hand with Sam Howell. We all know the quarterback is the straw that stirs the drink, but I expect big things from Bieniemy. You know, we've heard about how no team will give him a head coaching gig, and you can pull out any excuse in the book if you want to at this point, and I don't care which one you do because they all kind of work. It's, does he interview bad? Is it these owners don't want a black head coach like him? Is it he isn't calling the plays because of Andy Reid? Eric Bieniemy knows that he needs to kind of show off in this 1 year. And look, he's got pieces to do it. Yes, Sam Howell's a question mark, but put this skill position group against really anyone in the NFL, and tit for tat, they're really, really talented. So my expectations is, I'd say bottom, or I shouldn't say bottom, top half of the league, like top 15, I don't think is out of the ordinary for this offense to kind of turn it around. They should have a run game. So if Sam Howell struggles early, they should be able to move the ball a little bit. And honestly, Scott Turner wasn't that innovative. You know, it got really stale last year. Just the new wrinkles that he's going to bring in, I expect a few more points a game. Like, I think the joke with the Commanders was if they had scored like 21 points or 22 points a game, they're in the playoffs, you know, last year. And he's probably going, that's it. I need to get you one more score a game with this group. You know, like that's pretty much, I think he should be able to get that. And, you know, Bieniemy, we'd all be kind of dumb without mentioning it. Bieniemy kind of knows if Ron gets fired, he's going to get a shot here, whether it happens during the year, which I don't think is going to happen. But, you know, the talk is that it was Jason Wright that really got him here. Well, we know Jason Wright's sticking around once the new ownership comes in. Just connect the dots yourself here. Like, Bieniemy knows if he's good enough, he's going to be a head coach, whether it's here or somewhere else. So I expect it to be a top 15 offense.
Right. You got to like their chances too. If the defense plays anywhere near they did last year, if they have a top half offense, then it's got to be easy.
I didn't know about the Jason Wright connection with Bieniemy, so I appreciate you putting in that little nugget there, Mike. Next question that I have for you. We don't need to talk about Voldemort, and I know the latest news reports about him possibly meddling in things, but we don't need to speak of that name. I'm already moved on, wasted enough recording time saying his name. But when Josh Harris, in a week from today, takes over as owner of the Washington Commanders, what do you think he should do when he takes over? Some of those, I'm not going to say every little thing, but what are some things in your mind that you're looking at this team saying, Josh Harris could fix this right away and it would go a long way?
I would ask the players on that one because they did come in last with those team facility NFLPA. Like when you say right away, that's what comes to my mind. What can you make happen right now to make the players a little bit easier, get that family-oriented stuff squared away? I know it's probably not what the fans want to hear, but really, I think that stuff, it probably doesn't cost a lot of money, and it goes a long way with the players. After that, I don't know. Let's talk about FedEx Field a little bit. I have season tickets. I think it's actually gotten, you know, it's lipstick on a pig, let's be honest here. But I think the vibe has gotten better in the last couple of years. Give me a few more upgrades there. Let's see what you got with that. But in terms of what he's going to do right away, I don't see a lot happening. But I would say, number one, do what you can with those team facilities. Make the players happy. We all know that makes life easy for them on the road and, you know, for game day and practicing.
Yeah, we did the reno in Ashburn not too long ago at Commanders Park, and they did some stuff, but they still are behind on a lot of teams.
Yeah.
And that reno was like 20 years too late, which is crazy to think about.
Yeah, exactly.
And I mean, you're a Nationals fan. I find myself as a bit of a Nats fan.
It's all of these hats right here.
Yeah, there you go. The Nats knocked the first 3 picks out of the park, I think, with their first 3 draft picks. I mean, they got the second rated player in the draft, according to MLB.com, the 20th rated player in the draft at pick 40, according to MLB.com, and the 40th ranked player in the draft at 71, according to MLB.com. That's their rankings. Dylan Cruzell, he's walking into a crowded situation down there with those minor league outfielders that they have. What do you expect from him, and do you think he was the best fit?
I'll say it right off. I wanted Skeens.
So did I. I was huge on Skeens. I wanted
the ace. Yeah, I wanted the ace pitcher because Rizzo has yet to kind of screw those up.
Right.
But I will say I'll take Cruz all day long. My co-host and the voice of the Commanders, Bram Weinstein, he hates the Nats right now because he hates that they traded Juan Soto. We come to blows because I'm more realistic. Yeah, we come to blows because I've been rooting for the team since they got here. So I watched them when they sucked, loved it when they were good. I'm still here when they suck again. And what this brings me all the way around to is Bram's one gripe that I will actually hear him out on is he goes, this Rizzo rebuild, I don't have to believe in it, but they don't have a face of the franchise. Well, they have their face of the franchise now in Dylan Cruz. He is the guy. He is your new Strasburg, Harper, Soto, whatever name you want to pick there. Like not literally Bryce Harper, because I saw that comparison and that's not true. Like he was called the LeBron James of baseball.
Yeah, Harper was complete. People forget how good he was coming out of high school.
Yeah. I saw someone tweet that and I was like, no, it's not really. That's not how that goes.
Quite there, but yeah.
But Cruz, face of the franchise guy every day. And look, having more than enough prospects is fine. Like not every single one works out all the time. And like, I also follow the Orioles closely. Go ask them how they like having too many prospects. Right. They're going to make a blockbuster trade in the next year or so, and you're going to go, that's why you need all those guys. Yeah. So stockpile, and if one of them doesn't work out, they'll be completely fine.
Cruz and James Woods, that's going to be fun to watch.
Yeah, and one more thing, too, with, like, Rizzo. I had to remind Bram this at one point. Rizzo is really good at building a good team, not a great team, but then all it takes is that one guy like Cruz to elevate everyone else, sign a pitcher here or there, and all of a sudden your rebuild actually happens pretty fast at that point.
Yeah, that Max Scherzer signing really did change everything for that baseball team.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, and remember, everyone thought they were crazy when they did it too.
Yeah, everybody's like, you're signing up for how long, for how much money, and he's how old?
It was worth it.
Ended up working out pretty well.
Right.
Yeah.
And they let go of Jordan Zimmerman that year.
Yeah,
so people were like, what are you doing? And it ended up being every single player that leaves the Nats, they're actually okay with almost all the time.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Nah, I mean, like you said, say what you want about Rizzo, but the one thing he's good at is building a team and building a winner. So speaking of faces of the franchise, our beloved Terry McLaurin has been nothing but just the face of the franchise, the man since he's walked through those doors. Since his rookie year. What are your expectations for Terry McLaurin this year? Like maybe finally that he maybe has a quarterback that can get him the ball consistently. And do you think that he's a top 10 wide receiver in the NFL? Because a lot of people like to have this debate. I know we think he is, but what do you think?
Yeah, answer correctly.
Look, I see the McLaurin jersey hanging in your background there. I have a couple of my own, trust me. I would say put up the amount of quarterbacks that have thrown his way against the quality of those quarterbacks against all the other people in a top 10 list. And I'm pretty sure he's got the worst group head to bottom, top to bottom. Yes, he is a top 10 receiver. If Sam Howell stays the quarterback all season long, it means things are going well, which means things are going well for Terry McLaurin. I think it also matters though. Jahan Dotson needs to stay healthy too, to make sure things kind of stay honest. So if it takes a perfect storm, I think, here of having the top 3 wide receivers being healthy, and it takes Howell not making mistakes, really. Like, I think that's his number one thing this year. But for all intents and purposes, he should be breaking out. All he needs is a consistent quarterback. He has literally never had that here. So, yeah, I think this is the year, as long as Sam Howell remains the starter the entire year.
Music to our ears, Michael. But unfortunately, I have a couple more questions for you until we wrap this up. My first one being, like, a lot of the fan base on Twitter, the social media sphere, they talk about the tight end group and how they're lackluster, average, probably at best, they would tell you. But the one name that continues to get forgotten about is John Bates. Like, talk to me about John Bates and the importance to this team, because Eric Bieniemy coming in obviously didn't draft him. Where do you think that John Bates is going to be used this season?
So for me, first off, it's worth saying every team needs a blocking tight end. Like every team does. I mean, he was probably as good as some of the offensive line help, let's be real, last year. And look at his stats. There's a reason why his catches went down last year. They needed to use him in that way. But give me a nice, I think a nice season for him would be a nice, 300, 400 yard season. Like, I think that would be a solid season for him. I think, though, Logan Thomas is the guy that's going to be catching the majority of the passes. They really like Cole Turner. Like, he got hyped up last year. But at the same time, too, not unlike what I said with the wide receivers and the running backs, if things are going well, they hopefully don't need to use him that much. I would just like to see a little more use in the red zone, because I thought that's where they got away from that last year, where Scott Turner wasn't using any of the tight ends in the red zone, and it was the red zone offense was struggling. So maybe there's 300 to 400 yards, and maybe give me 3 or 4 touchdowns in there too. I think that'd be a very solid year for him. And he's to me kind of like Niles Paul a couple years back, where they just need to start using him everywhere. He seems like, as Joe Gibbs would say, the super smart, fight your guts out type guy, where I just think maybe the numbers won't scream everything, but a guy when you put in there is going to give you a really, really good effort.
And then my follow-up question with that, speaking of forgotten men, this news has gone quiet as of late, but it should be heating up very, very soon here. Do you expect a Kam Curl extension to be coming before training camp, during training camp, or if at all this season?
I think it's 50-50, to be completely honest. Maybe that's a cop-out answer.
No, you're
fine.
But
I do think if you pay attention to what Ron has done in the past couple of years, it's literally the night before training camp, right? The McLaurin deal got done right before training camp. The John Allen deal got done right before training camp. That's why I was so shocked about the Daron Payne deal, that it happened so fast in the offseason, right? The thing with Curl, too, is I don't know if they need, so this is where it's confusing to me, because my whole thing was they weren't going to get a Payne deal done because, they need to get clearance from ownership. Well, who's the owner? We can't really answer that, right? But they did it anyways. With Curl, he doesn't make real money. So you would think an extension would be, one, easy, and two, not a huge number, right? So I say yes, but I did a show this morning on ESPN filling in for Andy Pollin. ESPN all week long has been doing top 10 at their position in the NFL. And there's the first 10, there's 5 or 6 honorable mentions, and then there's everyone that got a vote underneath that. Kam Curl did not receive a single vote from NFL scouts, coaches, and executives. Not a single vote.
I knew he wasn't an honorable mention. That's insane.
Yeah. And so my mind was kind of like, are we overhyping him a little bit? I don't think we are, because I think when he's out, the defense completely changes.
Right.
But if you're the team, maybe you're even kind of like, well, maybe he's not as valuable as we thought. I do think an extension happens because he's a late round pick. How much could it cost you? But if he's kind of wanting this big number and his dad wants this big number, like we've seen on Twitter all the time, maybe they're far apart in a number, and that's why it hasn't happened yet. That's the only thing I can really think of why we haven't. So give me 50-50 on this one.
Yeah, and I'm sure the stats go a long way with those top 10 rankings and everything that they do. And obviously Kam needs more in that, but we know the importance of Kam Curl here, obviously. But my last question I have for you, heading into training camp, one of the big question marks on this football team is on the offensive line at left guard. Who are you hopeful wins that starting left guard spot to make this offensive line as best as possible?
I got to go Chris Paul here. Mainly just because I want I want a younger guy in there who's going to be hungry, that when he gets the starting gig, hopefully he doesn't relinquish it. Right. I think if we were looking at, the weakest part of really the entire team, I would really say the offensive line, mainly because they're all unproven. As a group, they worry me. They worried me last year when they were bringing in guys off the street and plugging them in. Right. So I'll go with the young gun on this one. I know they've got a plethora of other names that are going to be vying for it, but Paul was the guy too. I always like it when you have guys bringing up a guy's name without asking. And Chris Paul was that guy last year. You had guys kind of mentioning him. You had reporters talking about him. The John Kimes, Nikki Javalas of the world were mentioning his name. And you don't just get that out of nowhere. It's because you work hard during practice and you're making guys go, oh, okay. You got a little bit there. So he's the name that I circle that I really hope he gets it, mainly because if he's going against his peers and they like him and they know that he's good, I know he should be okay in games too.
Yeah, you talked about Sam Howell not making mistakes earlier in the offensive line. It obviously goes a long way with that and helping keeping him protected so he can make smart decisions. Mike, I'm impressed. I really did enjoy this time speaking with you. I know Reed is probably on cloud 9 because he got to talk about the Nats on here a little bit. But before we get out of here and you go and enjoy your weekend and your beautiful Thursday night, if you'd just like to plug your social media handle and or your show, just in case anybody watching hasn't followed or watched it and would like to.
Yeah, absolutely. So I work for ESPN 630 here in DC. You can download our app if you're outside of the area. You can listen anytime. I'm normally on 3 p.m. to 6 p.m. with Bram Weinstein, who you guys know, voice of the team, has crazy insight on the team. So during the season, give us a listen. If you listen to our Friday shows, Bram will literally tell you what he's seen that the other media members haven't seen and what the game plan is going to be. It's the best thing about it. But ESPN 630, check us out. We're a little bit smaller, but check us out and listen to me on Bram. I'm there every day.
I definitely will now, Mike. I can't thank you enough for taking some time out for us on this Thursday evening. Hope you have a good night, sir, and enjoy your weekend, Mike. And until next time.
Yeah, man.
Thanks, guys. Always appreciate it.
Appreciate it, man.
Have a good one.
Thanks.
All right, everybody. We just spoke with the man, Mr. Mike Callow. I appreciate T-Mac for telling us to reach out to Mike because he was phenomenal, dude.
Oh, yeah.
You definitely got to get him on in the future. He was a good insight. I like that.
Good insight.
Thanks for that, Ty. You little cute Ty boy. He is. Yeah, he might be. We don't know.
What?
He might be a little Ty lady. Ty.
No,
That's why his name's Ty.
Before we are joined by your next guest, I just wanted. Do you want to do like story time? Do you have any latest funny stories, Reed, since you haven't been here in a while?
I don't have really any funny stories, dude. No, not really. But when's the last time that you cried? This isn't really a story. I just want to know. When's the last time you cried? Had a good cry?
I don't know. Depends. It's probably been years.
Yeah, I cried.
I shed a tear back in January.
Yeah,
when my dog died.
Okay, well, see, that's I cried the other day when I realized.
Jameson, why?
No, don't bring that up. No, I'm sorry. I cried the other day. I realized that I'm never going to be WWF World Heavyweight Champion in my lifetime. And that made me cry. I'm 33 now, so I was like 32 when I cried about this.
Oh my goodness, dude.
No, yeah, it was real tears, man. That was the worst feeling in my life.
I'm sure they were real tears. But now before we are joined by our next guest, I did want to answer some fan questions, and this one is from the Colonel. I want to get this to you first, Hall. His question is kicker Joey Sly getting any competition in training camp, or are we all going to hold our breath every time he kicks an extra point this year?
It's a good question. I would assume they're probably going to bring in some type of competition just because I feel like every year there's always like multiple kickers in practice, like vying for that spot. You also need a guy that's, I guess not technically like not your backup, but like a guy that you've seen in practice and then in camp that that can make the kicks just in case a guy gets injured. So I would expect guys to be coming in and out of camp and some competition. But if I got to be honest, it's probably Joey Sly's job. And let's just hope that he's working in the weight room on his legs just as much as his arms.
I'm not sure if that would work at all because the accuracy thing, it's just like golf in a way where you say, you can get biceps for days. It doesn't mean you're going to hit it down the middle.
That's why I don't play golf. I'm too strong.
That's true.
Yeah, it's too strong.
Totally why you don't play golf. Just speaking of, Gene picked up a set of irons for my little brother Michael because he wants to get into golf. So I'm really excited to be able to give them those. We kind of have to give him one of my drivers though. So I'm sorry, Hall. I know you used it from time to time. But I don't know how to answer this, man, because I know that they did bring in a young guy as a competition for kicker, which is what you want. You want competition there, but I think it's more so of like the relative kind of thing where if something were to happen to Joey, you could bring somebody in who is relative to you and what you already are doing here, and is it a good fit is the best way that I look at it. But regardless, I mean, I think Tressway should see some competition. It might be fun to see Tressway screw with a young punter, around training camp all the time. I'd be happy to see that.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing is, like, I feel like if you brought in another kicker, usually, let's be honest, kickers are usually, I don't want to say this, but they're usually little hot young twinks. They're usually just very skinny, very small, very flamboyant. Joey Sly is going to bully that boy. Joey Sly is going to make them. That's a man. And I would not want to be the one who's like, Joey, we're bringing in competition as the dude's mid-roid raging out. So I don't think they'll bring in anybody. I do want to see Joey Sly kick a football and watch it explode, though. That would be sick.
Yeah, I remember one of my boys telling me back in the day, he's like, dude, why don't they allow like the kickers and punters to take steroids? I want to see an 80-yard field goal.
Dude, I think everybody should be able to take steroids. You want to see the best of the best? I want to see what happens, how far we can take humanity. I think baseball fucking ruined baseball. Let's bring it back.
Did it really ruin baseball, though? Because we had Mark McGwire and Sammy Sosa at the same time.
No, I'm saying them taking it out ruined baseball.
Oh, yeah.
Baseball used to be sick. Yeah, dude, baseball used to be so fun.
Do you imagine, like, Strasburg on roids throwing, like, 130 miles an hour?
His arm would fall off. He has so many injury problems to his ligaments, his arm would fall off.
All right.
But let for every for every Major League Baseball player that was juicing, there was thousands of minor leagues baseball players juicing. So let's not act like it was like the playing field wasn't even.
Okay, Jose Canseco. Let's move on to the next question from the Colonel. Reed, latest rumors have Washington trading Chase Young to the Ravens for linebacker Patrick Queen and a 4th-round draft pick. Neither player's 5th-year option was picked up by their team, immediately sparking trade bait possibilities. Is this clickbait, Reed?
Yeah, it's just one of those offseason things. They do it all the time. They're just making suggestions. I doubt there's any smoke to that fire behind that smoke. You know what I'm saying? But I do like Patrick Queen. I do. And it's mainly because his last name. I would say, McQueen. Hello, my queen. How are you, my queen? But he's a good player. But yeah, I don't think you would do that right now. I think that they like what Chase brings, and have the potential of a pass rusher, and Chase Young's potential is so much greater than it is for a linebacker in today's NFL, like how they can affect the game. And I guess that's why they would add on the 4th-round pick, but I just don't see that having any substance.
I mean, yeah, I get it. But one question I would ask everybody is, was the problems with our defense because of the linebackers last season? And when they were a top 10 unit, this is a very capable defense. Are we really acting like they're willing to walk away from somebody who could have a bounce back good year, finally get some real production out of him without injury or anything like that, fingers crossed? Why would you let that go in order to replenish that linebacker spot when it hasn't really that much impact? You're not playing that many linebackers. So, yeah, I do think it's clickbait. We've talked about this before where they'll just float these ideas because they know these sort of markets are clickbaity. Like, we love any sort of news. We're psychotic about this team for some whatever reason, even though I think we just enjoy being miserable at the end of the day. But
yeah, masochists.
Yeah. And so
love the pain.
I will say it's clickbait just because the time that we're in, you're trying to get juiced over traded cap. You still got 2 weeks to go. There's not really anything to give you. So why don't you throw out some rumors or thought you had? Why shouldn't the Commanders trade a 4th-round pick and Chase Young or Patrick Queen for Chase Young, whatever? I do think it's clickbait. I don't think there's any seriousness about that. If there was going to be any position that they would replenish or use Chase Young to trade for, wouldn't you think it'd be like offensive line or something along those lines? You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah, exactly. And the impact that Chase Young would have on the defense if he has a bounce back year and gets double-digit sacks would be greater than what Patrick Queen would bring.
He's no Michael Reed, I'll tell you that right now.
Exactly. It would be greater than what Patrick Reed would bring to the defense and him having a superb year, just because you're not going to – Patrick Queen can only affect so much as playing the linebacker position, whereas Chase Young is going to be rushing the passer, rushing the quarterback, or stopping the run every single play. So his impact would be higher for this team. So I just think that, like you said, it's list season, it's clickbait season. Training camp is right around the corner. People are just trying to push out whatever articles they can at this point.
No, you're not lying. Now let's go to our next question. The Discord chat server by our guy, Scott Hartley in the UK. Oi! Thank you, Scott.
Yeah, Mike.
Question: are the recent revelations that issues in legal negotiations between the NFL and Snyder threaten the sale process just threats, or is this something we should generally worry about? For me, it's silly season. It's just another story for the print media to sensationalize prior to the sale next week.
Yeah, so for me, Scott, my little angel Hartley, you're such a good guy. I'm with you, man. I can't let this bring me down. I've been riding this high that Snyder's going to sell the team in like the next 10 days or so for too long. I'm not letting anything bring me down. As far as I'm concerned, that's just a bunch of yipping yapping out there, on The View, just a bunch of yammering bitches. If I say
it's a bunch of poppycock.
Yeah, it's a bunch of poppycock. I'm not playing into that, dog. I got too much riding on this. I got my depression could be cured from this. I'm not letting that get down.
Scott, I do think you're absolutely right with what you're saying here. Because, the one thing I love with these sort of things, it's somebody familiar with the situation or somebody close to the situation. Using such a broad term to say who the source of this info is. Well, what is close? Could close be somebody that works for Seattle that heard a rumor and now is telling this reporter? You know what I mean? And so what is close? And so that's why I do talk crap on it, because I don't think anybody knows what Dan Snyder truly wants to do and what he's willing to do and what's going on in that situation. I think that, like you said, Scott, they're just drumming up some interest before it happens in 2 weeks, because they're looking to that wow factor, right? Because we're all, just like Reed said, we're sitting here waiting for Josh Harris. What better to make people panic and freak out and to get clicks by then throwing that in there and saying, oh, well, it could be derailed because Snyder doesn't want blah, 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 blah. Do you really know that, or is it a guess? And that would be my question to you, Scott.
Yeah, I would probably say that Dan Snyder's probably trying to get like every type of indemnification, however you say it, possible, just because, I mean, it's Dan Snyder. Like, he's going to try to make the thing as hard as possible just for the simple fact. But at the end of the day, they've come too far. They're pretty much at the altar. They're about to say, I do. They're not going to, no one's going to jump up and say, no, I don't want this marriage to happen. Like, it's not happening.
Brian Davis. I object.
Yeah. I object. I have a $7 million check right here, I swear.
I loved her first. I object.
No, but they're too close to the finish line. At this point, it's just a bunch of hearsay. Just like you said, I don't know. Just, it's going to happen. Just have no fear.
Yeah, and look, we can say all day long that Snyder probably wouldn't want those legal indemnifications and everything like that, but the fact being is, dude's about to make $6 billion. At that point, you could just sail. You can go to the moon. Who cares about legal ramifications?
Ask Andrew Tate, man. You can buy your way out of prison.
Jeez. And now we are joined.
What color is your Bugatti?
Now we are joined by our next guest, Mr. Arif Hasan from PFN 365. How are you doing on this beautiful Thursday evening, brother? Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, no problem. I'm good. How are all of you?
Not doing too well, Arif. I know that a lot of people out there will probably disagree with me, but the NFL decided a really stupid decision to go with Hard Knocks with the Jets. So are you excited for Hard Knocks with the Jets? Because I was going to watch it if the Commanders were on there. But since they're not, I don't want to watch A-Rod. What are you feeling about it? What are you feeling about it, Arif?
Oh, sorry. Were you just... I'm not excited about Hard Knocks. I mean, like, in a sense that I'm definitely going to be watching, because, you know, it's a little bit must see whenever Aaron Rodgers says something like weird and crazy. But, like, you know, at some point it really feels like he holds some beliefs that could be genuinely harmful, and he might use it as an opportunity to, you know, platform those beliefs. At the very least, you know, it kind of feeds his ego a little bit, which we already know is fairly high. So, you know, but like at the same time, I struggle to name like a more kind of intriguing franchise that was on the candidate list that like would draw like more views. So I understand like why HBO was like, yeah, we got to get, you know, this is the biggest market. They just vaulted themselves into Super Bowl contention. There's a couple of questions about Aaron Rodgers, like from a play perspective. He is an intriguing personality. There's no question about that. You know, whether it's because he like likes to create drama or, you know, likes to, you know, philosophize fairly out in the open. I don't know, but like he's an intriguing personality. So I understand that. I just, you know, don't love it.
Over under that Hard Knocks season 1, or the season starts with Aaron Rodgers ripping the vaccine out of his shoulder and getting ready to go into training camp. But
I mean, I assume that there's going to be some clips from McAfee licensed from the McAfee show onto Hard Knocks. I feel like that'd be the smartest thing. I mean, that's where he announced it, and that's like a good kind of dramatic pull in. I don't know if they're going to include any of the interviews where he talks about the non-difference between immunizing and being vaccinated.
Aaron Rodgers is in his own world. He's so funny.
Yeah.
He's in them float tanks all day. But but so looking at the Commanders, I mean, bringing in Eric Bieniemy, everybody wants to talk about the passing game or wide receivers. I mean, stacked at wide receiver, Terry McLaurin, Curtis Samuel, Jahan Dotson. Everybody's expecting a big jump if Sam Howell can take that jump. What do you expect from somebody like Brian Robinson and Antonio Gibson from a fantasy perspective?
From a fantasy perspective, it's a little bit tough. I mean, there's going to be more space for Robinson to run, assuming that the passing game kind of pops off. And I think that kind of right now that there's like been a lot more there's been a push in the NFL to run the ball a little bit more now that everyone's like emptying their boxes, right? And so, some teams are deciding to reinvest in the running game, even like analytically sound teams that don't necessarily have running quarterbacks. And we discussed last time that Howell has a fair amount of athletic capability and could be used in the running game to kind of help supplement Brian Robinson. That said, Robinson had a statistically kind of underwhelming season last year, right? It was under 4 yards a carry, right? And he didn't hit 1,000, which is kind of like the number that we look at for running backs. And he didn't. I think that a lot of us kind of expected more touchdown production from him, and I don't think he even got 5 touchdowns if I remember correctly.
Well, we have to put the caveat that he was like shot right before the season, though.
Right? No, yeah. That is relevant.
If he was a man, he would have kept playing. I
mean, I've covered players
no excuses
shot right before the season, so there's. But I'm just saying, I remember Chris Johnson after he got shot.
Chris Johnson got shot. What happened?
He was like in the shoulder, and then he played for Arizona, and it was actually. Credit to him. He changed his playing style completely. He turned into like a good like goal line type back. But I think that the space will benefit Robinson a lot. I don't know how the team feels about Antonio Gibson. It feels like they changed their minds on him, a lot. And so I don't actually know kind of what that's going to look like. But I think Bieniemy values having a diversity of back skill sets, right? I mean, like that's why they originally drafted Clyde Edwards-Helaire. That's why they ended up drafting Isaiah Pacheco. That's why they added Jerick McKinnon. And that's why they have, the gadget type players like Kadarius Toney and Sky Moore who have the capability to do a lot. And so having that, variety of skill sets available to them, I think that they're going to attempt to find a way to use them. So I would anticipate kind of a lot more run for Gibson than we saw last year. And I think that we're probably going to get a good split in terms of touches for them. So I don't know that we'll see Robinson hit 1,000 yards again. Hopefully he will. I think that the capacity for that is there. I think his touchdown production will go up. It's really difficult to predict touchdowns, but generally speaking, for both actually receivers and running backs, statistically, you're going to rebound closer, unless there's a very specific usage reason that's not the case. You're going to rebound towards 1 touchdown for every 100 yards. And for running backs, it can get as low as 80, but that's where you're going to rebound. And he had, over 600, I think over 700 yards last year, and he had fewer than 5 touchdowns. I'm just going to expect more touchdowns. So if he gets 1,000 yards, I would expect, something like 10, 11 touchdowns, especially because I would rather have him at the goal line than Gibson. So as a fantasy back, I think that, given how popular kind of deferring on running backs has become in fantasy, he and Gibson would be an exciting pair to draft in the mid-late. I don't know where he's going in drafts, but I assume it's not very, high. He'd be
I think like 4th or 5th round if you're looking at 12 team.
Sure, yeah. I mean, 12 team is the only one that matters.
Right. It's true. Thank you.
Very true.
But yeah, I think that I think that that's not a bad 4th, probably 5th round value to get, and then you pick up Gibson a little bit later as both insurance and as a supplement. Like if that running game, if Howell has a similar effect that I don't even want to get to Lamar Jackson that Fields has on the running game, right? If Howell has a similar effect as other athletic quarterbacks do, or Daniel Jones even, right, on the running game, I think we'll see a boost in production from that running position that's going to get you some value fantasy-wise out of that pair together that I think you wouldn't necessarily anticipate based off of like just draft capital and year 1 production alone.
Yeah, definitely. Throughout the years, we've seen teams with young quarterbacks kind of try to insulate them with a good defense, put some weapons around them, and kind of stick to the run game. And you mentioned how the NFL is kind of shifting back to the run game with the lighter boxes and teams going more 3-4 wide receiver sets. So if you look at a team like the Giants last year with Daniel Jones and Saquon Barkley, you get a smart offensive mind like Brian Daboll to step in there and kind of build an offense around Daniel Jones and what he does best, and just a whole lot of Saquon Barkley pretty much. My question is, it's kind of like a long-winded question, but it's pretty – I think a lot of the national media finds it pretty inconceivable that Washington is going with a 5th-round quarterback in Sam Howell. And I guess my question would be, Washington has a pretty stout defense. They have the weapons around him. Why is it so out of the realm for Eric Bieniemy to, I guess, mold an offense around him, them insulate him with the run game, and for this team to be successful? Like, do you think that's possible this year?
Certainly it's possible, right? I think that Howell has the baseline talent to be productive, but I think it's pretty fair for media to default to kind of the round production or the round value that a quarterback has fallen to, because that's not even their own opinion. They're deferring to the experts when they do that, because teams passed on Sam Howell multiple times despite having needs at quarterback. And so they're essentially relying on the signal that those teams send when they say, hey, we don't think he's a first-round quarterback. If we thought he's a first-round quarterback, even if we didn't need a quarterback, we would have drafted him in the third round, right? And your value or your likelihood of producing at a high level as a quarterback drops off pretty dramatically out after the first round, right? You do get some great second-round quarterbacks. Obviously, we know about Russell Wilson in the third. We know about Dak Prescott in the fourth. I mean, these things happen, but the likelihood is pretty low, right? I mean, like, we just saw Davis Mills outperform his round value for the Texans and still get, replaced by CJ Stroud, right? I mean, that's just what happens. Right. So I think it's certainly reasonable for the media to do that. But you take a look at what Sam Howell was able to do. He looks like he's more talented than a fifth-round quarterback. Obviously, kind of the third-party draft experts thought that Howell had a really good chance to be drafted by the end of the second round. Certainly, a lot of people were putting him in the first round. So there's something there for us to say, hey, this is a guy that was kind of interesting. I think that, part of the reason that he fell was because the system, I think it was North Carolina, right? That system was the Larry Fedora spread style system. It's pretty difficult to track, quarterbacks out of that and project and all that. So there are fair reasons that he fell. Maybe they had some concerns about how quick his eyes were, how consistent his release was. I know that when I went on Washington radio talking about kind of the lengthy release, a lot of people pushed back on me and said, hey, actually, no, he's got a pretty fast release. I don't know what you're talking about. And that's a change from what he did in North Carolina versus Washington. It's still a looping release. He sped it up, but it's still, a reason that quarterbacks tend to fall. Yeah. And it also, if it's a looping release, it tends to impact your accuracy long term, all of these kinds of other things. So I can certainly see how kind of exceeding expectations, but I don't want to castigate, people for kind of relying on the signal that the NFL sent them by letting him fall so far.
No, exactly. You are where you're drafted until you prove otherwise. But the kind of piggyback off of that, Washington's had bottom five quarterback play, obviously with Taylor Heineke and Carson Wentz over the past couple of years, and they've kind of just hovered around that 6 to 8 win range. If they can get kind of just average NFL quarterback average play from Howell with this defense, where do you kind of see Washington topping out at this season?
Let's see. I forget where I ranked the Washington defense. It's between 4th, 5th, and 6th heading into the season. I think, a lot of people didn't pay a ton of attention to how good this defense is. We'll see kind of what that pass rush looks like and who's healthy and who's not and all that. But obviously they added to the defense and there's a lot of potential for this defense to help kind of drive the team. Now they're in a pretty tough environment. The division has some pretty high level offenses. If we expect kind of a better season and a full season from Dak, we expect a similar season from Hurts. And, I have no idea what's going to happen with like Daniel Jones and Brian Dable, but we'll assume that the package of them together is effective, whether or not you think Daniel Jones is a good quarterback or not. Right. And so it's going to be tough to figure out kind of where the Washington defense is going to take them, given kind of likely, 3 top half offenses, maybe, depending again on the Giants, and certainly the possibility of 2 offenses that could be top 5. Right. So that's a tough area to try and figure out, what that defense can do for them. So at some point, they're going to have to expect some level of offensive production in order to kind of push themselves into a playoff position. That said, it is a very good defense if we include kind of the products of what they did last year and some of the kind of high value players that I think have gone kind of ignored, not just along the defensive line, but like safety with Kam Curl and all that. So yeah, there's a possibility there, but I do think that there's a good chance the defense kind of flatlines a bit. It's so difficult to predict defensive performance, just generally speaking. And so a defense that was good last year, that didn't lose many players, or a defensive coordinator can just get worse. That's just a thing that happens a lot more in the NFL than on offense. So in order to have that consistent level of play and the likelihood of making the playoffs in very, very, very tough division, you're going to need some level of offensive performance. I don't think that you can rely on it because your defense needs to be San Francisco levels of good. Last year's Dallas kind of good. Again, good defenses can fall off, but like those levels of good from last year in order to kind of bring a whatever offense forward. And both of those teams had surprising offensive production kind of given the circumstances of their offenses.
My man. And now to wrap this up, Arif, I have one last question for you. And I'm not trying to poke or, make fun of anybody or anything, but Warren Sharp had listed Washington's wide receiver core at 20th in the NFL overall out of 32. Do you agree with that assessment?
I'd have to see the other 19, I guess, but intuitively, no. I've been on, maybe, I don't know. I've been on here before talking about how great Terry McLaurin is. I love him, right? Obviously, Jahan Dotson had a very, very promising year. There's a lot of things that you can do with that receiver core. Having Curtis Samuel, you can just move a bunch of people around, and you could do a lot worse than Curtis Samuel as your third receiver, right? So, the receiver talent in this league has exploded, and so it is really difficult to get a good grounding of, kind of what I expect an average receiver core to look like. But, without listing all of the receiver cores in the NFL, right? Like, I don't think it's as good as Seattle's or Cincinnati's. It kind of depends on how important your top receiver is versus your second receiver, but I would suggest that the Vikings receiver core is better, right? Depending on kind of the Raiders and kind of what happens, with all of that, you'd say, Jacoby Myers, Devontae Adams, and Hunter Renfrow, and, that would be better. But like, it'd be, I can't think of like, a receiver core with that level of talent being below average. Like, is the Miami receiver core better? Yeah, of course it is. Is like the Cleveland Browns receiver core better? No, it's not. Right. So like, it's difficult for me to think that, I prefer like the Arizona Cardinals receiver core or anything like that. Like, I just feel like there's fewer than 15 teams that have a better receiver core than Washington.
I appreciate your honest answer because that's why I wanted to get the national perspective. Like, you're not looking at this in burgundy colored glasses or anything. I want to get your honest assessment because I was looking at it saying, my goodness, like, I'm not saying we're top 5, but 20th, bottom third of the NFL. That's kind of ridiculous.
Well, the thing is that they can play themselves in the top 5.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Sorry, they can play themselves in the top 5. I do think that it's a Terry McLaurin thing. Because he was so good his rookie year, and then from a numbers perspective, it's been difficult for him to generate production because of those quarterbacks. At least I think it's because of those quarterbacks. I think when you take a look at, especially if you're like breaking down cornerbacks, and then you take a look at like their game against Terry McLaurin, you're like, oh, geez, that guy kind of shook him, and you see it happen again and again and again. I feel like there's something there.
Right.
So I think they can play themselves there, but if I were to rank them right now, I don't know that I'd put them in the top. I just listed, I think, 5 teams that I'd probably. But man, it's tough for me to say below 15.
I agree with you, Arif. That's why I wanted your honest opinion, because I'm a homer. I'm okay to be mad at Warren. That's why I wanted to get your opinion to actually get some education here. Arif, I can't thank you enough for joining us, but before you get out of here, would you like to plug your social media handle, just in case anybody watching hasn't followed you yet and would like to? Yeah, sure. You can follow me on Twitter at Arif Hasan NFL, and I think last time I was like, who knows how much longer Twitter is going to last, and so I did. I did get an Instagram Threads. I think I'm just Arif Hasan over there. I don't use it. I don't love the vibe there. But, if Twitter collapses, that might be where I go. Just make sure you don't delete it. Yeah, right. Yeah. Lose my Instagram too, right? Yeah. But so I'm Arif Hasan on Instagram and Threads, I guess. Terrible name. And on Blue Sky, I'm just Arif.bsky.social. Man, you're important. And I got like a really early, I don't know why. I got a really early invite, so I was able to get just my first name. And then I think I'm on Substack Notes. I think that's a Twitter alternative. I haven't logged in since I registered that account, but it's there, so find me there. Arif, I can't thank you enough for joining us and giving us your 2 cents on this team and the vibe of them. I really do appreciate your time, sir. Enjoy your weekend, enjoy your night, and have a great one, brother. Until next time.
Fantastic. You too, man.
Thanks, Arif. Have a
appreciate
great
it,
one.
man.
All right, everybody. We just spoke with the man, Mr. Arif Hasan from PFN 365. A lot of people commented last time he was on here that he was maybe like a little bit aggressive, you could say, in the way that talking about the Commanders. But I love hearing that sort of point of view. Just at some point you have to be able to combat what you feel. And I'm glad that we were able to talk to him a little bit, especially about Warren Sharp's ranking, because I'm still pissed off about that.
Yeah, it is a good point. It is one thing that is true that's like undeniable is there are so many good wide receivers in the NFL right now. And I mean, shout out to my best friend Logan Paulson. He told us this, and it's true. It's because fucking kids are running routes now in 7th grade. Like they know they know the intricacies. Look at that word of running routes. They know how to position themselves. They know what they're doing. They know what depth to use. And so that just helps them as they get to college, and then they get even better. And then they just, they graduate, they come in.
And going back to Warren Sharp, can we even trust his list? Because his name's not even really Warren Sharp. It's just like
What's his
something
name?
else. So it's like, I forget what it was, but I saw someone a while ago when he made one of them lists. They were like, can we really even trust this? His name's not even really Warren Sharp. And then they put up his like actual like real name. It's like he just made Warren Sharp up because like, I don't know, I guess it sounds cool. I don't know, but
it does sound cool. It does sound pretty.
I'm glad that you told me that because that's really weird for him to do something like that. To be honest,
I'm gonna Google that right now.
Warren Sharp.
I told you guys on Twitter when he did his ranking, he was like, "I can't make the D line go any worse. I can't make the secondary any worse. They already have 2 or 3 green/yellows. They can't have that many greens, so we got to bump the wide receivers down, and we'll just claim it's due to depth." Right? Because that didn't make any sense. Otherwise, saying that Washington is a well-built football team, and they cannot bring themselves to say it. They cannot. Now,
Tyler Brickner. Oh, it makes sense that he hates on Washington so bad. He's from Clifton, Virginia. His name's Tyler Brickner.
Kyle, what light bulb just went off in your head? Why are you making that face?
No wonder he came up with Warren Sharp.
Well, Tyler Brickner. That is the whitest name of all time. Is he a white guy?
I could smell the Polo cologne from here.
You're telling me Tyler Brickner is a white guy? Color me surprised.
Now let's wrap up this episode with a couple fan questions.
Hey,
boys.
Tyler, man.
Reed, to go to
Tyler, dude. What's like your over under on like the Commanders, bro?
Excuse me, it's Warren Sharp now.
You have $100 in chips. How much are you putting down that Washington will get tagged for the NFL Hard Knocks in season?
I have $100 in chips. They're gonna be Cool Ranch Doritos, and I'm eating them all. Now, what am I putting down on what?
How much are you putting down on the NFL doing in-season Hard Knocks with the Commanders?
15 chips, just because it's not going to happen. But if I win my 15 back, cool. But it's not going to happen. They don't want to see Washington.
Yeah, no. I think somebody in the NFL smart. Somebody does, because somebody's like, there's so much here that we can cover. Like, there's so.
We're
much
very uninteresting outside of this like fan base.
Apparently,
to the rest of the NFL.
But that's just because they're losers. They're dumb. What a guy. They're sending their worst. No, but there's so much you can cover.
How come
with
the
us.
bad stuff of Washington gets national attention, but the good things of Washington isn't worthy enough of this side?
Billie Eilish, baby, we're the bad guy. We're bad boys to the rest of the NFL.
Reed, can you please not sing anymore? But for me, Tim, I'll say 69.
Ew. Kyle put down his favorite number.
Yeah, 69.
Never mind. Never be on the bottom in that situation. With a dude.
I explained that so the other day. Do you remember a while ago when we weren't recording yet, but you had explained to me what docking is? I had to explain it to my uncle the other night at my boss. We were at a job site and I was telling him what docking was, and he was like, "What?" And he got literally visibly upset with me.
He was like, "Why would you tell me about the old Chinese finger trap trick?"
He was like, "You weirdo."
You just get stuck with your bros.
I told him about that part, and that's what really set him off.
Wait till I see Gene. I'm like, Doc Master Gene, what's up?
Gene, you want to come out with me and the boys? We're going to do a little docking tonight.
All right. It's
simple.
It's speaking of docking, the next question from Tim Towner. Hall, what is your favorite ice cream?
That took a weird turn. I'm not going to dock my ice cream if that's what you're asking.
Yeah, you can't.
That's true, you can't.
The cone one.
Favorite ice cream, I would say... I'm a cookies and cream guy. I like cookies and cream.
Your cookies and cream.
A little bit mixed.
For me, I really like the chocolate ice cream with the cookie dough, and like Reed, I like some nuts in mine. So
Yeah. So you strike me as a big Ben and Jerry's guy then. I would think Ben and Jerry's is good, but those guys, what losers? Always talking about the Native Americans. We're built on their property. You are too. You're taking their land. What losers they are. No, I'm a big plain dog. I'm just a big old chocolate guy. Give me chocolate, anything. Double chocolate, double fudge. You give me a little bit of brownie.
Chocolate anything, you say.
Chocolate anything. You know what I'm saying, Hall. Right, my brother? And yeah, just give me chocolate, dude. I'm a big chocolate. I've also been a big
You heard the brother, dude, you heard the brother with the A? My brother?
Dude. So there is a really good sandwich from and this is gonna sound this might be the fattest thing I've ever said on here, but I'm having a fat attack. I'm really hungry right now. There's a really good ice cream sandwich that 7-Eleven makes, and it's strawberry ice cream with 2 sugar cookies, like in the middle. Wow, what a sandwich! It's so good.
Damn, you just blew my mind with that one. Actually, I'm not gonna lie.
That sounds
Pretty
really
good.
good.
Pretty good.
That does. I'm like,
Now let's go to our last question. Discord chat server from Jeff Miles. Which current Commander player is closest to becoming a Hall of Famer, and what do they need to do to complete the career and to accomplish that?
Terry McLaurin, and he needs to get good quarterback play. That's really the only guy. I mean, it's a good John Allen.
See, it's so hard to get in as a wide receiver, especially as the passing game just keeps evolving.
Especially if
you're gonna have to put up like crazy numbers, but
that's what I said. Good quarterback play.
Yeah, that's true. I would say, I mean, yeah, I guess you got to go with Terry McLaurin just because you look at a guy like Mike Evans, who's had 1,000 yards every single year since he entered the league. That's going to bode well for him getting to the Hall of Fame. I know Terry, other than his rookie year, has gone over 1,000 yards every year. So I guess if he just keeps putting up 1,000 yards and 5-6+ touchdowns a year, that could maybe get him there. Maybe if they start actually winning some playoff games and, competing for NFC championships and kind of changing the narrative of Washington and just being like constant losers, then I think that will also like kind of prop him up even more. So I would say Terry, but I guess an honorable mention could be.
Just say Terry. Don't steal anybody else's.
Yeah, I couldn't even think of anyone else.
For me, look, I'm looking at this with a realistic mindset, Scoot. I'm looking at this saying what is
realistically, it's nobody to be
most
honest.
likely like position difficulty in getting in the Hall of Fame, player longevity in their career and sustaining greatness. Right now, as of the moment, no disrespect to Terry, John, any of those guys, I think it's Tress Way. If we're being honest and being realistic about it, who has the best chance to get in the Hall of Fame at the current moment, I would say it's Tress Way, just based on how good he has been and how long he has been the punter here, if anyone has the best chance to do it.
Hey, I will put in a caveat. If Ron Rivera somehow pulled off a miracle and won a Super Bowl here, I mean, he's a multiple-time Coach of the Year award winner, went to 2 Super Bowls. Maybe if we're going to put in that caveat of coaches, maybe then you can say, I think put Ron in there.
Yeah, I like that. Now
that's going to piss a lot of people off. That's
the last question, last question from Twitter from Scoot. I accidentally read that earlier. I'm sorry, Scoot. His question is, Reed, what is your expectations for Game 1 versus Arizona?
Oh, an absolute bloodbath. Colt McCoy back there behind that O-line. Look, they got Paris Johnson. I actually like Paris Johnson coming out, but come on, they don't have anything. They have nothing. Arizona's losers. They're dumb. They're basically a double A team, and we're gonna stomp them.
Oh my goodness. For me, I do expect that our offense is going to struggle a little bit going against obviously that Shane, whatever his last name is, being their head coach.
He's a dork too. He's a nerd.
Yeah,
Have you listened to him talk?
He was the defensive
sucks.
coordinator from Philly, so they kind of know us a little bit just based on personnel and what we like to do. But obviously, Eric Bieniemy being added does change things up a little bit. But I do expect the offense to not get off to a hot start, so to speak, but I do think it's going to lean heavily on our defense and being able to, just like last season, hold them as much as possible to allow the offense to finally get in a rhythm to get to gel. I don't think it's going to be all season long like it was last season, but I do think in Game 1 that is going to happen. So our defense is going to have to hold tight and do what they are supposed to do, and that is literally suffocate the shit out of inferior teams offensively, not overall teams, just offensively. And if we're being honest, that offense matched up versus this defense, our defense should be suffocating them. And there's no excuses about it. That should be happening, and I don't want to see that happen at all.
Yeah, we say that, but watch now. They're going to end up dropping 40 on us.
I know. It's going to be one of those crazy Colt McCoy games. Yeah, I mean, I expect that it would be a defensive-driven win for them week 1 against the Cardinals. I do think, like you said, the offense is going to take a little bit to kind of get in the flow of things and be consistent enough to actually be a threat to like teams that are better than Arizona, like the Broncos in week 2. So I do think it'll be a defensive game. I expect at least 2 to 3 sacks from the defense. I actually expect the defense to probably score a touchdown in this game. And yeah, I think Emmanuel Forbes gets a turnover.
Holster
and he lives up to the hype that he was coming out of college with all the pick sixes. I'm not gonna say it's gonna be a pick 6, but I do think he gets a pick. And yeah, I think it'll be a beatdown, but the score won't show it. It'll be like a 21 to like 10 type of game, but you're going to come out of that game saying Washington, defensively at least, dominated the shit out of the Cardinals.
And then the local media is going to be like, why didn't they put up more points? They should have put up more points. They're not that good.
No, we're gonna get destroyed by the Broncos. They're gonna score like 30 on us.
I told you this a couple weeks ago. That's exactly what's gonna happen. It's just the moving of the goalposts. It happens every single time.
And then EB is gonna come out and be like, I knew Eric Bieniemy wasn't that high.
I wasn't impressed by the Eric Bieniemy. I wasn't impressed.
And then
the offense it looked the same to me. It looked the same. Yeah. I don't know.
And then Lurch.
Well, what do I know? I'm just a dumb radio guy. What do I know?
And then Lurch is going to be like,
that's my EB
I think that was a very, very good thing, EB. That's my Lurch impression.
You need to.
That's the only other one from the Junkies that I know. I don't know any other. I just know Lurch because it's a name of a mongoloid. He's probably a nice guy, though.
Definitely a nice guy. All right, everybody, that's going to wrap us up for this episode. Thank you so much for tuning in. We really do appreciate all of you for just all your constant support, chiming in with these fan questions every single time, and then following us and just commenting, letting us know what you think. It really means a lot to us. It helps us get better, and it's good to know that you guys care as much as you do about 3 idiots in here talking to each other, making stupid comments like Reed. And just to let you guys know, they're not associated, but Reed is no longer allowed at the White House. This has nothing to do with about the cocaine that was found. They're separate instances. Just want to let you know he's not allowed there anymore.
That was Hunter's, dog. Come on. Everybody know that. Come on, man. Goddamn, boy. Everybody know that was Hunter. Everybody know that.
Come on, dog. All right, everybody. That's going to wrap us up for this episode. I'm Kyle.
I'm Hall.
Andrew Cobra Tate.
All right, everybody. We'll see you on Monday. Have a great, safe weekend. We appreciate and we love you guys. Washington football.
I'm just a dumb radio guy. What do I know? I don't know anything. I don't know.
Washington football. Woo! What's up, everyone? This is Kyle from the Burgundy Zone. We are releasing our own merch to support the show. If you want to rock the Burgundy Zone logo or you want to see Reed's face on your shirt, we got it. We're starting with t-shirts, hoodies, and zip-up. So if you're a fan of the show, make sure you snag one before they are gone. Check out the link in our bio on Instagram, or you can find the link in the description of the video. Thanks again for all your support. Until next time.